Storytelling in September is a special time. Hello, welcome to Storytelling in September. I'm Sunshine Luti. We have 8 Publishing Club members who have a story to share with you today. Starting off our storytelling adventure is Ellen Mabey, joined by Robbie Fitzsimmons, performing Myth as part of their duo poetry music project, Ellen and Robbie. Here we go.
Myth. I wanted to feel the music of your shoulders, watch the tension of CD turn to 8-track. I read your nonfiction. If that's not a crush, what is? You live 20 years away from Richie Havens, turning up at a cafe. I watch the liner notes of your wrists like a fortune teller. Jerome Robin choreographs your neighborhood with a pale peony. I heard there's a tree in Washington Square Park, dripping with handcuffs and a noose. Phil Oak sings of the cobwebs of contradiction. Did you ever wear sandals? Did you hold a megaphone? When did you start wearing cufflinks? When's the last time you played a folk song? When's the last time you kissed a girl who memorized Bob Dylan's bootleg releases? When's the last time you used groovy as a verb? When's the last time you hummed a Rodgers and Hart song? When's the last time you went to Kim's video store and rented hair? Into most travel. The asphalt is pinstriped. 1/4 of the time, I don't know what decade I'm in. I watch you watch the parade. I'm the one who whispered in your ear. The Army McCarthy hearings aren't available on DVD. I'm in the park feeding the pigeons bread and circuses. Come midnight, I watch Michelangelo leaning out of a helicopter. He has quite an eye for astronomy. Every night, Lord Buckley leaves Cafe Wa. Every night, Walt Whitman and Allen Ginsberg fly like Chagall above your window. One night, I tagged along with my flailing trampoline. I tried to visit you like Frank O'Hara's son. You drew the blind. You took away my yellow. Suddenly, a confetti of tangerines fell from the sky, labeled, handpicked by Icarus. I ate till I was sticky.
My name is Michael Panacorvo, and I'm going to read an excerpt from a novel, a young adult novel, titled A Bedtime Story. A light glowed through the window in the door, and it seemed open for business. Billy read the hand-painted sign that hung over the door, the Mortuary Boutique, and below that, in smaller print, Home of the Strange and Unusual. "Let's go in," he said. Billy pulled open the door to the jingle of bells, and they stepped across the threshold onto the creaky wooden floor. Billy wandered on ahead to the back of the store, where a mechanical fortune-telling witch sat in a booth, slowly moving her hands back and forth. Billy took a closer look and read her name, Heket. The witch seemed more than mechanical, particularly when she leisurely turned and cast her eyes on Billy. He had the uncomfortable feeling that she was alive, looking right at him. But then the mannequin slowly closed her eyes, composing herself, and collapsed like she was going to sleep. "May I help you, young man?" The wispy voice belonged to a tall, withered beanpole of a man with watery blue eyes that peered through thick glasses down at Billy. The man had been concealed behind a rack of costumes. As he stepped out, dressed in a long black smock, he pulled a cord, closing the curtain around the witch. Surprised, Billy jumped. Alice came up beside him and noticed the man's long, multicolored fingernails. "Ah, I see you have a twin," the man said through his thin, cracked lips. "Is this store new?" Alice asked, looking around. "New?" he said, shocked by the question. "I should say not," he said, and drew himself upright to an alarming height. "We've been in business for a very, very long time, haven't we, Ravina?" A big gray cat jumped up onto the table next to the man. "Well, we've never noticed your store before, and we walk by here nearly every day," Alice replied. The man shrugged. "What can I say? The eyes have been known to play tricks on us, haven't they? So now that you've met Ravina, my name is Mr. Heath," he said, the sound whistling between his teeth. "I am the proprietor of this store, and we welcome you to the Mortuary Boutique, where the old and the odd have a second life. We have knickknacks and gewgaws of every sort in origination." The proprietor swept his arm around the shop, his voice rising. "I can show you precious items from Egypt, the Orient, or maybe you'd like to see something from the head-hunting jungles of South America. A book, maybe. Tombstones full of scribbles fill our shelves. So is there something I can help you with?" he finished with a sweep of his arms, gazing down at both of them. "Just looking," Billy said. Alice turned and pointed to a splay. "Why do you have that book in a glass case?" she asked. The storekeeper looked where she was pointing, scratched his nose, and said with a queer smile, "Simply because it is a very old and special book." "Can I see it?" she asked. Mr. Heath lifted the hidden latch and opened the door to the case. He took the book out, and Alice turned her head and read the title, A Bedtime Story. Well, she didn't think that sounded very special. "Would you like it?" Mr. Heath asked. Billy looked at his sister and shrugged, and then back at the man. "We don't have any money," he said. "Oh, that's all right. I know you'll return it when you're done. You may simply borrow it. We're not a library, of course, but this particular book has had many readers, and as you can see, they've all brought it back." The book's worn cover looked as though it had been through many hands. The man looked up at the ceiling, closed his eyes, held the book close to his chest, and sighed. "Oh, the number of stories this special book can tell," he sighed. "I collect them, you know." That didn't make any sense to Billy, and he wondered, did the man mean it was a chapter book? Mr. Heath started to hand the book to them, but you must both take it at the same time. You are twins, and it must be for the both of you, he instructed. They both reached for it. Wait. And he pulled it back and held the book upside down and began to fan the pages over a sheet of paper. Alice thought she heard him whisper, Novus Versus, an incantation. A small, dark, inky cloud of dust dropped down out of the pages of the book onto the paper. He picked up the paper, funneled the dust into a small medical flask, pushed the stopper on tight, and put it on a shelf with many others. Alice was surprised and stared as he did this. She got a glimpse of the pages as he closed the book, and they now seemed to be empty, blank. Was it her imagination? Sometimes the last reader sticks notes or things inside, and we have to get them out, you know, before the next reading, the proprietor explained. There, it's all clean and ready for you, he said, and then to himself he mumbled, can't have the stories getting all mixed up, can we? Mr. Heath's behavior was very strange, maybe a bit silly, but the twins had become very curious about the book. Mr. Heath handed it to them and let go of it, only after they both had put a hand on it. Alice looked at her watch. It was getting late. Billy, we need to go. They could come back another time and explore the store more thoroughly. Billy put the book in his backpack between his science and history books. The man clucked at this placement and raised his eyebrow. My, that will make for interesting reading. Many things influence the book. Many things influence the story in that book, he said, as they turned and headed for the door. Be careful what it touches. And when you're finished, if I'm not here, he called out, you can just leave it by the door. Thank you, mister, they both said in unison. When Billy looked back, he saw the man pull the cord and open the witch's curtain. He wasn't sure, but the proprietor seemed to be speaking to her. He thought he heard him say, 2 together. Isn't that exciting, Heket? The doorbells jingled again, and they stepped out on the sidewalk in the cool evening air.
I am Barbara Goldberger Gorin Goldstein. And a friend of mine said, wow, that's a lot of names. I said, I know. I'm looking for number 4. You're looking for the 4th husband at the age of 91? I said, yes. He's got to be 100 years old, no children. He has to have a G at the beginning of his name, and he has to have a lot of money. Oh, I have another name for you, 2 more names. Let me hear. Barbara Goldberger Gorin Goldstein, gold digger in the golden years. Oh, wow, that's great. I thank you very much. I want to thank Peggy and Sunshine for letting me be on this program and everybody who's listening, because if I didn't have you, I'd have nobody to listen to my story. And my story is called An Awakening. For 70 years or 75 years out of my almost 92 years, I have done something. Whenever I go to a restaurant or a diner or someplace to eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, what do? I pick up the tab when I go with them. The other day, my daughter called me up and she said, Ma, you went out with some friends last night, right? Right. Who paid? Leah, let me just, Ma, I asked you who paid. I did, Leah, but never mind, you have a problem. And she hung up. My daughter happens to be a wonderful counselor in San Diego School District. When there is a homicide or a suicide, or they need her on TV, they call Leah. Leah knows her stuff, and I watched her teach. She is absolutely wonderful. And she said, I have a problem. I'll go to my OA. Overeaters Anonymous. I've been a member for 48 years. And when it came to my time, I said, how are you, everyone? I have a problem. I pick up the tab. I've been doing it, pick up the check. I've been doing that ever since 75 years out of my 92 years almost. You do? You pick up the tab? That is funny. Well, as I walked out, someone said, "Come here, Barbie. Can I give you an assignment?" I said, "Of course." "Write on it." I said, "Write on what?" "Well, you said you have a problem." No, my daughter really said that. "Yes, I said I had a problem." "All right, well, write on it." So I said, "Why? WHY? Why do I have this? Why do I want to pay for everybody?" "I know. I saw my mother and father and grandma pay, so I want to pay." "That's not why, Barbara," said my adult Barbara. Now my adult Barbara said, "Why do you think you want love?" "Well, everybody wants love, but that's not why, because I know the people I take out love me anyway." "Ah, Barbara, you like to control." "Yes, I'm a real good controller, but that's not why. I don't want to control these people we go out to dinner with." Well, I didn't find the answer yet, and I found a friend of mine. I told her the problem. She said, "Did you ever think that maybe the people you take out might want to reciprocate, or feel they have to reciprocate?" I never thought of that. "Did you have enough money, Barbara, to take them out?" "Well, if I didn't, I'd just put it on MasterCard." "I see." And then when I left her, I thought, that's the reason. I'll call up Leah and tell her I don't think, and I'm not mature enough, and other people would feel obligated. "Hello, Leah?" "Yes, Ma." I got the answer. "Oh, what is it?" "I'm not mature enough, Leah, and I never thought that whether I had money or not, and whether the people should pay, they would feel they'd have to pay." "That's not the answer, and I have to go now, Ma. Bye." That's not the answer. So then I saw two other people, Bob and Pat, and they said, "Barbara, you want to go to the golf course and have a Sunday morning breakfast with us?" "Sure, I'd love to." "Good, come on." So I'm sitting in the 19 restaurant, it's called, in part of Laguna Woods in California. And we're sitting there and the waiter comes, "May I help you?" "Yes, please. And what, can we have separate checks?" But that wasn't the reason. Wait, a little more to the story. I'm sitting there in the golf course and the sun is beaming at me, and the beautiful green grass. It's not too dark. It's not too light. It's a beautiful color mode. And I'm watching the golfers are getting ready to play. And I'm sitting with two wonderful people who are in their 60s, maybe early 70s. And here I am, 91, almost 92, this old fart. And they want me to join them. And I felt so good about it. I don't know if I felt like crying or smiling, but I said, "I want to pay." My friend Pat said, "All right, Barbara, all right, you can pay." And my other friend, Bob, didn't say anything. He just looked at me like I was nuts. And Donna was my friend, and she was in OA. She said, "Barbara, did you thank the people? Did you tell them how happy you were with them?" "No, they'd feel like they had to reciprocate that." "Did you think picking up the tab told them?" I wasn't able to express my feeling. And so I wrote a poem, Holding On to Resentments. Put them in jars, JARS. Don't bottle up feelings, get them out. Write or speak or even shout. Be aware of anger, resentments, or sorrow. Live in the day, but plan for tomorrow. J is for joy. Try to express it. A is for anger. No need to repress it. R, holding on to resentments just hurts me. S, cry for sorrow, and you will see that putting your feelings in jars is the way to serenity. Heed what I say. I hope you enjoyed that. And I thank everyone for being here and listening. Thank you.
Hello, I am Susan Tsui, and I use my nom de plume with a PIEN, my maiden name in the middle. So please remember that. And my stories are all nonfiction. And the title of my story at this time is Reaching the Stars. My grandniece, who is also a writer, since she was a kid, she was in her 10 or 11 year old. She wrote many books. She wrote to me and said, Grandaunt, I love your book for 3 reasons. One is the cultivation of multiculturalism. Number 2, love for peace. And the third, your passion for music. So here I'm going to relate to you the stories. You can see them in pictures with Amazon.com when myself and all the teachers that I'm involved with in public and private schools, teachers and students, we produced and held 2-piece concerts at the United Nations. And you will love to see those pictures. And then the second story will be in the village story without pictures. And that is why I'm telling you, it was a very dark morning. Sunrise, not yet. So I was up on the deck of the cruise ship in Egypt, and I was walked all the way to the front. And then along the River Nile, I belted out my opera arias. I think I sang 3 songs with the waves of the Nile splashing at me. That was exhilarating. But nobody saw me, and I don't have any pictures. Then the next story, you will be surprised. It involves 100 musicians. They are all Americans. And I trained them to sing in Chinese. And we did the concert up on the Great Wall in Beijing, China. We were invited by the mayor of Beijing to go and sing, and he gave us a motorcade parade up to the Great Wall, and we belted out the whole concert in Chinese called Yellow River Cantata. After we finished, we coming out, and many of the members started to speak Chinese with our members. They will look up, don't understand. Then they told me, how come you sang so beautifully the Yellow River Cantata and you don't know Chinese? Yes, they didn't know Chinese because I trained them for 2 months phonetically how to sing the song. These are the great memories I would like to share with you with my passion for music and for multiculturalism and for love for peace. And I hope you will join me to continue that message over here so that we can all share our own goal of reaching for the stars. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Globa, and the story I'm going to read is called Cry, My Beloved Countries, in the plural. The letter arrived just a few days before Christmas, and from the familiar handwriting, I assumed it was Bernard's annual Christmas card sent in reply to mine, which that year had been mailed rather earlier than usual. But a closer look at the envelope alerted me to the fact that I had assumed incorrectly. The long brown envelope resembled no Christmas card in either shape or color, and the date stamp in Johannesburg showed that it had been sent by surface mail way back in October. But first, let me tell you about Bernard and Catherine Munyai and their mother, Francina. Francina, she of the serene and smiling face, had been our domestic help throughout most of the 1960s. Nursemaid to our youngest, cheerful friend to our older children, maid of all work, with a propensity for dropping any item that could be dropped, but lovable nonetheless. Francina and her husband Yapi Munyai had a small house in one of the African townships outside Johannesburg, but she resided in her own neat room attached to our backyard. When she came to work for us, she had a small son, Bernard, who was cared for by his grandmother during Francina's absences at work, but who was a frequent and welcome playmate in our home. When Francina gave up her position to have a second and then a third child, she still kept in close touch, and we were delighted when she named her new daughter, Catherine, in honor of Kathy, our eldest child. Francina died tragically young in 1974, but her widowed husband, Yapi, frequently brought the children on weekends to play and to be admired. When in 1977 our Catherine married her own Bernard, the Munyai family were among the invited guests, and there's a cherished photograph of the bridal couple with little Bernard and Catherine, two smart and smiling black kids in their Sunday best. We lost touch with Yapi Munyai and his family when we emigrated to Seattle in early 1980. The next communication was a desperate letter from Bernard at the end of 1984. In sole charge of his siblings since the death of his father 3 years earlier, he was about to be evicted from the family home that they had occupied as tenants for more than a decade. It appeared that for a relatively trifling sum, but beyond his means, he could purchase the house from the local township authorities. I still have this letter, which arrived the very week that my beloved wife Ruth passed away. "Please do try to help me," he wrote. "I need your help very much. I know I am demanding too much, but I can't help it." With some difficulty imposed by bureaucratic red tape and geographical distance, I was able to secure the purchase of the house and the security that it brought to the young Munyai family. My letter to Bernard after finalizing the affair enclosed a beautiful photograph of my late wife. He had asked how he could thank me, and I set out 3 things that he could do. He should continue to grow as a good citizen and a credit to his late parents. As the eldest, he should make himself responsible that his younger siblings do the same. And thirdly, he should frame the photograph and treasure it prominently in his home, because I regarded what I had done for him as the best possible memorial to the name of Ruth Globa. I never saw Bernard again, but for the next 15 years until 1999, we exchanged cards at Christmas. I followed his career with deep satisfaction, graduating high school, enrolling at a technical college, and completing his course there, marrying, and cultivating his precious house and garden. So, I opened this unfestive-looking envelope at this last Christmas time of the 20th century and found that the familiar-looking handwriting was not Bernard's, but that of his sister Catherine. She wrote, "To inform you that Bernard Munyai was brutally killed in Soweto after he came back from work to find out that his properties were stolen. He confronted those people whom he was suspecting they break into his house. Unfortunately, they beat him to death." Bernard Munyai was the second young African man in whose personal affairs I had become closely involved. In my grief at Bernard's heartbreaking tragedy, I recalled for the first time in years my involvement with Simon Gaula. In the early 1950s, I was a family practitioner in an industrial town not far from my hometown of Johannesburg. One of my favorite patients and friends was Richard Gaula, the sole black traffic policeman in the town. He was a handsome and imposing man whose demeanor and smart uniform commanded great respect from all who knew him. Richard's son, Simon, was a bright, tall, and gawky teenager in high school. At Richard's request, we arranged for Simon to fill in as a substitute for my office assistant during school vacations in order to make extra pocket money. Richard was always extremely attentive that his son's work met expectations. One day in 1956, Simon decided that he'd had enough of school and asked to be taken full-time into my employ. A family conference of father, son, and myself was called. I persuaded them that Simon was far too bright to be buried in the dead-end job that was all I could offer him, that he had the capacity to not only finish high school, but to go on to college and possibly become a physician himself one day. If he would stay the course and pass the requirements to enter college, I would undertake to subsidize his medical school education. Simon Gala accepted my offer, devoted himself to his school studies, and secured a part-time job at the post office on weekends. As a heartbroken Richard Gala informed me soon thereafter, it was in that capacity that 17-year-old Simon was fatally gunned down in an attempted post office robbery. All this came back to me as I tried to grapple with the news of Bernard's senseless murder. What had been so commonplace in the 1950s had become epidemic in the 1990s. And what lies ahead for South Africa in the 21st century? With a heavy heart, I can only echo Alan Paton's plaintive call, "Cry the beloved country." And what lies ahead for our own beloved country, these violent United States of America? Postscript. This essay was written in 1999. Now in 2022, in the wake of the recent massacres in Buffalo, Uvalde, Laguna Woods, and Tulsa, and with Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parklands, and others burnt into our collective memories, my rhetorical question becomes ever more pertinent and ever more agonizing. Thank you very much.
My name is Daya Shankar Fisher, and the title of my story is A Christmas Memory. It was a beautiful, beautiful, special evening, and this was a special evening because there was such an unusual joy in the air. There were beautiful Christmas lights, and there were rows and rows of Christmas trees which were decorated with handmade ornaments. And then there were some different kind of color lamps which were containing the very nice candles. These were shimmering and they were just so beautiful. And then along the line came beautiful Christmas memories of so many people containing different kind of Christmas songs, enchanting Christmas music. And then, above all, the anticipation of wearing my very pretty, very nice Christmas dress added to my happiness. This Christmas, my nanny Mesa asked me, "Daya, would you help me bake some Christmas cookies and decorate some Christmas cookies? And if you can help me wrap some presents." I said, yes, I will. So we did all these things, and there was some of those Christmas cookies did not turn out the way I wanted it to be, but Mesa, my nanny, said, "Oh, what a beautiful work of art." That made me feel very good about that. So then Mesa asked me, "Honey, let us count how many Christmas presents you have." So I started counting and I said, "Well, I think, Mesa, I have 10. Okay, oh, 10. Oh, but we need one for Pikuji. Hurry, grab one for Pikuji and put it in this Christmas basket." And I said, who is Pikuji? She said, "Don't worry, just hurry because it's getting dark outside. We have to walk outside. So do it quickly. Okay, I will do. So I decorated a little Christmas basket and I put a little present there and some cookies there and some candies there. And then Misa said, now you hold my hand tight. It's dark outside. And we have to go, keep walking toward the street lantern near the tamarind trees. And I said, yes. And would you show me the way? And I said, yes, I will. I felt very good because this was the first time a grown-up asked me, show me the way. So I held her hand and we kept walking outside, and it was pretty dark. It was very dark, and we were walking very slow because it was dirt road. It was very bumpy road. So we kept going and going and going. And then my nanny Mesa asked me, what do you see? Do you see something? And I said, yes, Mesa, I see a street lantern, and I see under that street lantern a heap of rags and lot of rags and blankets, and it is high, very high pile. And Mesa said, keep going. And then Mesa stopped and she said, oh, Merry Christmas, Bhikuji. And all of a sudden, I see there is some movement under that blanket, heap of blanket. And there appeared a man, a very old man, who could hardly stand up. His hands were shaking. And he extended his hands to Mesa and said, thank you so much, Mesa. God bless you. Merry Christmas to you too. Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you for coming. And as I was watching that exchange between my nanny Mesa and the beggar, whom my nanny called Bhikuji, I had this kind of strange, a unique feeling in me. I had a feeling of a combination of compassion and love for the beggar. And I had this renewed feeling of respect and love for my nanny, Mesa. I was only 6 years old. And that Christmas memory would stay in my memory lane forever and ever and ever. And thank you for listening.
I'm Michael Marshilden. I was blessed to be a pediatric general surgeon for over 40 years. Following events occurred in the 6th month of my surgery internship at Johns Hopkins Hospital in 1968. The Patriarch. The Patriarch was a tall, soft-spoken black man with a full white beard. He could have played the part of Moses as well as Charlton Heston, except he didn't have the body for it. Years of colon cancer and multiple surgeries had wasted his muscles. Tyrone Griggs was 70 and had worked a double shift most of his life to put his 12 children through college. He was supremely proud of his 33 grandchildren, whose parents brought them all, even the babies, to visit him. His recurrent cancer was causing him abdominal pain, and his stools were black as tar from his bleeding colon. It was December 10th. I hoped we could get him home for his last Christmas. After blood transfusions, the Patriarch felt much better. His surgeon, Dr. Carter, drove a Porsche and wore hand-tailored suits made in Hong Kong. To my dismay, on December 12th, he took the Patriarch to the operating room. Tim, my resident, had tried to persuade him not to operate, but to no avail. Dr. Carter's explanation, I think he may be obstructed. To be sure, the patriarch might have had some degree of intestinal obstruction from his cancer, but he wasn't vomiting, and considering the advanced stage of his disease, he was coping fairly well. I hope that, at the least, the operation wouldn't make him worse. I cringed when Dr. Carter made a vertical incision the length of the patriarch's scarred abdomen. After a great deal of work and dissection, he had the abdomen wide open, and we gazed down on a gray mass of cancer everywhere, encasing all the intestine and every other organ. Christ, a concrete abdomen, cancer and adhesions everywhere, said Dr. Carter. It's going to be hard work, boys, and we better not make a hole in the bowel. Old Tyrone here wouldn't be able to heal that worth a damn. Eventually, Dr. Carter found a loop of dilated small intestine and another loop of collapsed small intestine. There must be an obstruction between these two loops, he declared. Let's sew them together and get the hell out. Tim asked, how can you tell which is proximal and which is distal? Good question. We'll just have to figure it out. He pointed to the left side of the dilated loop. I think that side is the proximal end, don't you, Tim? I don't know. Well, that's the way I see it. Suture. He divided the dilated bowel and oversewed the right-hand side. He took the open left side, the side he thought was proximal, and sewed it to the distal collapsed piece of intestine. To be fair, Dr. Carter, in all that long surgery, did not make a single inadvertent hole in the intestine. He didn't spill any intestinal contents in the abdomen. He was a skilled technical surgeon. Later in my training, I learned we should have just sewed those two pieces of bowel together side to side, not divided anything else. But Tim and I closed the abdomen while Dr. Carter went to talk to the family who occupied most of the waiting room. I walked beside the stretcher on the way to the recovery room. The tube from the patriarch's nose was already draining dark green bile. A week later, when his intestinal function should have returned, the dark bile was still pouring out the tube, suggesting a blockage. Tim pleaded with Dr. Carter to reoperate, to find out what the problem was. 5 days before Christmas, Dr. Carter's partner made rounds with Tim and me. Tim asked, where's Dr. Carter? Oh, he went skiing in Switzerland. Didn't he tell you? No, he didn't. But did he tell you about Mr. Griggs and the fact that he's obstructed? Well, he told me about a patient he'd operated on that was slow to open up. He didn't think he was obstructed, but he thought that if he was, it was probably the cancer and we shouldn't be too heroic. Mr. Griggs wasn't obstructed before his surgery, but he certainly is now. I think he needs another operation. I know he has lots of cancer, but he may still have some time left to be with his family. Tim repeated the argument for the next 2 days. Finally, 3 days before Christmas, the partner gave in and took the patriarch back to the operating room. It was a Sunday. Whatever Dr. Carter's faults were, arrogance and terrible judgment being two, he was an excellent technical surgeon. However nicer his partner was, he was a lousy surgeon. It didn't help that the abdomen was even worse than at the first operation. New adhesions were everywhere, all over the abdomen. In trying to find the intestine that Dr. Carter had sewed together, the partner made several holes in the bowel. Each hole was a catastrophe, exponentially increasing the risk of peritonitis infection. After 6, I stopped counting. The partner was ready to quit several times, but Tim was a bulldog and finally just took over the case. After more hard work, he pointed, there it is. He was pointing at the loop of intestine Dr. Carter had oversewn. It should have been collapsed, but it was hugely dilated. Looks like we oversewed the wrong end, Tim said. Tim said we, but we all knew whom he meant. Dr. Carter had oversewn the proximal end of the intestine, the end coming from the stomach, and taken the downstream end and sewed it in a useless circle. The patriarch was completely obstructed, not from his cancer, but from our operation. 2 days later, intestinal contents began to seep through the incision and out the drains we'd left in the abdomen. Predictably, all those sutures and all those torn pieces of bowel hadn't held. The bile was trying to find its way out through any passageway it could, fistulae. In the case of the patriarch, It was a death sentence. When the suntanned Dr. Carter returned from his ski trip, he blamed everything on Tim and his partner and denied that he'd made any mistake at all at the first operation. I wondered how his partner could work with such an ass. Maybe it was because someday he hoped to trade in his Buick for a Porsche. It didn't seem enough. I thought of the patriarch that probably never had a vacation in his life, and of Dr. Carter skiing in Switzerland. Choosing which life I'd rather lead wasn't difficult. The nurses loved the patriarch as I did. They did their best to keep clean dressings over his foul wounds. They changed his sheets several times a day. They used air freshener frequently. Every morning that I visited him, our conversation was the same. Good morning, Mr. Griggs. How are you doing today? His voice was hoarse from the tube that had been in his nose for 2 weeks. Oh, pretty good, doctor. I think I'm a little better. I'm certain that he knew. I think he said that just for my benefit. I have never felt so helpless and so depressed. The patriarch died 2 weeks later when I had left the service. I talked to the intern that replaced me. He said the patriarch had faded a little each day, but always seemed at peace. In the last few days, his answer to the morning question was, oh, pretty good, doctor, without the, I think I'm a little better. Years from now, when I'm old and senile and I've forgotten everything about my Hopkins internship, I'll still remember the patriarch. I hope I can die half as well as he did. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gail Slayton, and the book I wrote is titled Self-Portraits of a Runaway Wife, A Healing Journey Told Through Poetry and Prose. This book is about my journey back to self, about waking up to life and staying present long enough to experience the world in a new way. I want to share my story, my lessons learned, to help others who find themselves lost and invisible in their own lives. One choice, one moment in time can change your life completely, amazingly. Here's a sample of some of my poems. The first one is called The Satchel. I carry my memories like an old leather bag, worn out, drab, frayed at the edges. Once in a while, I open the satchel and gaze upon sepia pictures of faded faces, childhood's determined words scribbled on scraps, stuffed into pockets, parents' reprimands echoing from the depths, tears and fears, shame and solitude, making myself small and invisible. I can drown in there, in the past mistakes, the what ifs, the should have. But it's an old bag falling apart at the seams. The contents don't look familiar anymore. Someone else's life, perhaps. It's a story not necessary to tell. I trade the bag in at the Lost and Found for a glitzy bag studded with tacky jewels and rainbow-colored streamers on the handle. Perhaps the contents are the same, but the bag, it makes me smile. This one is called Decades. Out of sync with life, her first decade was spent as a 20-year-old, caring for siblings, mothering the brood, making rules for others to uphold. Her second decade was spent as a 40-year-old, Dear Abby, counseling her young peers, peacemaker, and overseer of others' love lives. Her third decade was spent as a 50-year-old, settling into her duties, gathering objects of others' desires, Balabusta and chef, a welcoming hostess. Her fourth decade was spent as a teenager, breaking out of old confines, trying out new lovers, self-absorbed, shirking responsibilities. Her fifth decade was spent as an 80-year-old, settled and safe in the prison of life made small, waiting for death. And now, in her sixth decade, Perhaps she can make up for lost time, pursuing her fanciful dreams of childhood, banging pots to create rhythms, crayoning her life back to color. Now, this next one is called The Gift, and it's about a time that I went to see a reader of Akashic Records. I was really on a soul journey. So here's my experience. What should I be? I asked the reader as if I was 8 and not 68. The lesson for this life is just to be. You don't have to be anything, do anything, prove anything. Just being is enough. Really? So simple, yet an impossible task. I always thought I had a gift to share. I needed to be vigilant to find my purpose and give it to the world. And now you say, just be, that it's okay to just sit and listen to my breath, gaze at the stars in the sky, smell the air after the rain, feel the sun on my face. Be present in each moment. Discover the joy embedded in this life. The gift is not what you bring in. It is what you notice, what you witness, what resonates with your being, and that you can share with others. Be happy. Be peaceful. Just be. And this one is titled Chaos Unbroken. When in chaos, be the eye of the storm. When overwhelmed, breathe into your heart. Remember the unbroken chain of love that surrounds you, enfolds you, protects you. When all is lost, have tea and cookies. Gaze at sunset. Beat a drum to your heart rhythm. Remember, you can never be broken. You are whole. Find your inner light and turn it up until you remember. You are a radiant being. You are perfectly imperfect, and the lessons are in that imperfection. Honor the chaos as your teacher. Sit with the overwhelm. Let go of what you think you lost. Make space for the next adventure and live this life with joy. And finally, I'm finally comfortable in my own skin. I think that's because it's so loose now. I have room to move around in there, and when I stretch, it has a lot of give. Why didn't I think of getting a skin size bigger before? Always worried what I looked like, hiding the bulges beneath large tops, wearing lots of black. Now I'm comfortable in my skin. I look in the mirror and I'm pleased with the crepes. I always liked that texture before, but I didn't know it would go so well with my soul. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, all the storytellers. Wow, I'll tell you, this has been a delightful storytelling in September show that we've had this year. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you at our 2023 Storytelling in September show next year. And now I'll turn it over to our president, Peggy Edwards, to say goodbye and to ask Nancy Brown, wait one more second, Nancy Brown, our treasurer and webmaster, to talk about our next event on Autumn Author Forum on October 19th.
Thank you, Sunshine. It was beautiful.
I'm so impressed. That was marvelous. I'm so impressed. You brought tears. You brought emotion. You made my heart flutter. You're great. You're great. I learned from you. Thank you. Thank you. wonderful storytellers.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you.
And don't forget our village stories. Do you guys see the angel on the cover? Right up here, there's an angel.
Beautiful.
It's the best ever. And this is the best ever. And see you in October at our Autumn Author Forum. And I'll turn it over to Nancy.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Sunshine, and all the wonderful storytellers today. And I have with me our newest member. This is Anne, and I discovered that she lives right down the street and doesn't do Zoom, so I invited her over here. So anyway, I'm very, very excited about our Autumn Author Forum, which will be on October 19th. In Clubhouse 2 from 2 to 5 p.m. We are very honored to have 5 sponsors this year. Our title sponsor is Masiska Physical Therapy. Our gold sponsor is Julia Dart with Coldwell Banker. And we have our silver sponsors, Ellen Leonard and Dottie Herford. And I think we have one more that's in the making. So we still have room for you to purchase a table for $15. Anne has done that. She brought me her membership application and her Autumn Author Forum application. So I have that here today. And if you haven't signed up, especially you storytellers, and you have books you want to sell, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to talk about your writing styles, answer questions of our attendees, tell all your friends and family about this event, because we really want to encourage participation, and we just hope that you all will be there. Do be sure to check out our website frequently. And if you have any questions, or you want to well, I think they're all members here, but if you want to sign up for Autumn Author Forum, you can always reach us on our email at pubclublw@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and see you next month.
I have
I
one
am
more thing.
filled with joy. Thank you.
Let me say one more thing. Sunshine, you did a great job. You did a great job.
Thank you, but let me say one more thing. We were listing all the sponsors and we forgot to list Alan Dickinson, who has
I knew there was one more.
Yes.
Thank you, Alan.
Right. So,
Okay.
thank you, all of you. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios. Au revoir. Ciao.
May I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Two
Go
questions.
Go ahead.
I like to know, I don't live in the village. I like to know if it's okay to invite people to come to the forum, and if there is any possibility that they can come just for the event, if there is a possibility to communicate that to the gate person just between 2 and 5 for people who are not the residents.
And I can answer that question, Ellie. Yes, people outside the village are most definitely invited. We do need to know their names because we have to submit their names to gate clearance. If it's anyone who wants to have their books for display and for sale, then they do need to be a member of the club to do that. So I can provide you with both things, but if you send me a list of names, Ellie, I will make sure that they get put into our gate clearance system.
I wouldn't be able to give a list, because I'm not sure who exactly is coming, you know. I wanted permission to invite, if that's okay. And then I really don't know who will actually show up on that date.
Well, you can invite them, but let them know that that they need gate clearance. And so if they could let you know, they don't have to let you know today, but before October 19th, they should let you know. In fact, before the 18th, so I can put their name in.
Otherwise, they'll be turned away at the gates, and we don't want that to happen to them.
Right.
So before the 19th, maybe a couple of days before, I can give you the names.
Yes,
and
yes,
that
that's
would
fine.
be taken care of.
That's fine. Yes. Yes, I will make
Okay.
sure it's taken care of.
Thank you very much for what you're doing. My second question is that I love to honor birthdays. It's something that I just love to do. And I didn't know if in this community that is being done or not. But I just wanted to bring it up that I would love to say happy birthday to Peggy. Or anyone else, anyone else who has a birthday in September.
In fact, Ellie put me.
When is your birthday, Peggy?
It was last Saturday.
Oh, happy birthday to my
Happy
favorite
birthday.
now.
But Ellie put me on her blog.
Yes.
She wrote a story about me and
It's
put
a
me.
nice story. Yes.
Yeah, and check it out. It's fantastic. Ellie.
Well, and Ellie, you inspired us. We have added one more thing to our membership application. We've added birthday for the month and the day. You don't have to put the year, but the month and the day, and then we can wish you a happy birthday throughout the year, whoever's has a birthday.
Good move. Good.
And whoever is already a member probably should send in an email to our webpage to say, my birthday is.
Well, or fill out a new application at Author Forum. Our membership chair will be there, and just to update any information. So, or say, like Sunshine said, send an email to pubclublw@gmail.com with your birthday.
Well, if anyone would like to write a very short tribute to Peggy, you can ask Sunshine or Nancy for the link to the blog. I would be honored to hear from you.
I'm honored. I'm honored. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me to this community. I'm honored. And
I
have
am
a
honored
happy,
too.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I'm filled with joy and with love for all of you, especially Peggy and Sunshine, for all that you do. And I just enjoyed every single one of you. And if I don't say it, I have to express it. You know that.
Thanks for expressing.
Thank you.
I was deeply touched and moved and inspired by each story. It was so touching, and the diversity and the tone of each story. I feel like a natural high, like I received a beautiful, beautiful gift. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ditto, ditto. Very good.
Right.
One of you were beautiful.
And all of the storytellers, I give you guys a special thank you because I put you through hell trying to get all this together. And thank you for putting up with me. And
yes, you
doing
did.
such
That's
an excellent job. Each of you did.
Thank you, Sunshine.
Thank you, Sunshine. Yes.
Sunshine, how is your neck?
It's there. Yep.
Oh,
Thank you again, Peggy and Sunshine, too. Second to none.
Thank you.
And you, Barbara. You.
And Susan, I enjoyed you.
Exactly. And all of you. All of you. Gail.
Good job.
Gail.
Ellen.
Gina's
Ellie.
the moment.
Oh, Gail. one of you. The doctor.
It was great.
Right?
Okay, shall we bring it to a close, guys?
Let's
Yes, lots of love and thanks.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love to you all.
Bye. Thanks a million.